Hello, I need a clicker. Here we go. Take care of myself. Thanks for being here, taking time out of your busy schedules, because I know that the one thing that we all have the same amount of is time, and our time is precious. So I'd like to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to be here today. I loved Pat talking about good life, because fitness is an incredible part of our wellness and our minds, and although I may not look as fit as I need to be, I've absolutely started a journey. We were just talking about 8-week challenges, and I'm on an 8-week challenge at the moment, so we'll watch the end of that. Tommy and Simon, I am part of the Melbourne Phoenix community, a very, very proud member, and it's been an incredible season. That's been fantastic to watch. And one of the things why it was a fantastic season is consistency. So what we do consistently is what we will be, what we become, what our thinking is. So I want to talk about how to create a winning mindset today. Who here has ever had a frustrating day at work? Who can relate with being frustrated? Yeah, most of us, me included. And who has had that frustrating day at work and taken it home to their families? Yeah, me too. Who would like to have ways to manage that frustration at work so that you have great, fantastic days at work and end the day happily and take that happy person home to your family? That's what I do most of the time now. This is me. I'm Mary Jensen. I'm a human behaviour specialist and a mindset master. But I haven't been this all of my career. I moved out of home when I was 15 because my father was a violent alcoholic. And I put myself through night school. I started as an accounting junior, accounts payable and accounts receivable. So a lot of data entry and a lot of high pressure, because like most of us that work in corporate, we know that there's only a number of hours in the day, and we've usually got a higher volume of work, a higher volume of input than we have time to output. So we're all under a lot of pressure. And I worked really hard because I had to pay rent and I had to eat and I had to survive. So I became a finance manager by the time I was 20 and a financial controller by the time I was 25. I worked really, really hard. I put my blood, sweat and tears into everything I did. And I became a ball-breaking bitch. Who's seen The Devil Wears Prada and the ball-breaking bitch that runs the top of that company? And if you haven't seen the film, who's ever experienced a ball-breaking manager that just wants 24/7 of your life? If I talk about Robert Bosch, I ran a department in the Philippines, they did our admin. I ran a department in India, they did our AP. I was responsible to America for all our asset management. I was responsible to Germany for our head office. I was responsible to Singapore because we're part of Asia Pacific. And if you look at all those countries and all those time zones, I was required to be in meetings in all those time zones. So I'm not sure about when you're meant to sleep. That was a really tough time. I worked there, I was headhunted to go there. Why was I headhunted to go there? Because I was a machine. I was working really hard. I was a human doing, not a human being. I worked phenomenal hours. In the first 6 months that I worked at Robert Bosch, I worked 7 days a week, every week. And in fact, my daughter rang me, she was in year 10, and she said, "Mum, I'm doing my Deb. We haven't had mum and daughter time in 4 weeks, and I need a Deb dress, and Dad's not taking me." Anyway, as most mothers would do that are working in a high pressure environment, I told her off, and I hung up on her. And she rang me back and she said, "Mum, there's 2 choices here now. You can either take me to buy a Deb dress, or I'm going to ring work cover." So, of course, I told her off again and hung the phone up. And then I thought about it and I thought, oh, what will the implications be if she rings work cover? Seriously, we would have probably been in a state, because the hours that we were working were ridiculous. I've been heavily involved in basketball with my children our whole life. And one of the weekends that I was working at Robert Bosch was the Dandenong Eltham tournament. And my kids were in 26 games across the tournament weekend. I had to work, and my son's had two games at the Nunawading Stadium. So Bosch in Clayton, the Nunawading Stadium, maybe 10-minute drive up the road. So I watched two of his games. I left, which would have been an equivalent to a lunch hour on a Saturday, and the second game was on Sunday night at 8:30. So you would think that's even really after hours. I had a temp working for me at the time, and he told my manager that I'd been in and out all weekend at the basketball. So on Monday morning I was called in and I was given scathing about my attendance over the weekend. So I thought about that. I thought about the work cover incident with my daughter, who she didn't ring. I did leave work and go and buy a Deb dress. I didn't leave it up to her dad. And I thought about the weekend and the basketball, and I am a really big basketball fan, so for me to miss that tournament was really tough. And then we were looking at exporting all the manufacturing in Australia out to the other countries. So we were moving machinery out of Australia, and we got a directive from head office in Germany to cut a head count. I had two accounting people working for me. One was 5 months out of university and the other one was 9 months out of university. Each of those staff members were working 45 to 55 hours every week, and I was told that I needed to cut one of them. And I said, who's going to do the work? And they said, well, you're the manager of the department, you came highly regarded, you never ever miss deadlines, that's why we headhunted you, you have to figure it out. So I went home and I thought about it, and I came back and I went into my manager's office and I said, I've got it sorted. And she said, so who's going? I said, me. It was one of the best decisions that I ever made in my life. It was sending me down the path of human behaviour. How do we manage our minds? How do we manage in situations? So if we look at a model that I want to talk about today, and this model is a huge model that you could have coaching on for over 12 months. But what I want to focus is two parts today. So responsibility and blame. When something happens to us, we have two choices. Many people believe that when something happens to us, that we react the way we're meant to, and that everybody will react in the same way, and that my reaction is not my responsibility. So I can tell you a story about my daughter on the way to her wedding. This is 2.5 years ago now. The night before the wedding, we're driving to the reception centre and I'm in charge of the wedding cake. So we hit a pothole and I dropped the top off the wedding cake. Now, if I had been that old ball-bracking bitch back in finance, I definitely would have blamed her for her driving. She definitely would have blamed me because, of course, I was the one responsible for the cake. But we'd both changed a lot in our mindset by the time this happened. And that year, I was consolidating what I call perspective. And you called it, what did you call it, Tommy? So perspective and perception, yes. They're interchangeable words. And so we changed a lot about how we thought. And now I think whenever there's a challenge, what's the solution? How do we find? And I said, Chick, when you got a minute, pull over. And she's like, oh, Mum, what have you done? And I'm like, oh, good, you know, when you got a minute, pull over. Anyway, we put the cake top back on and it had fingerprints in it. And I said, it's all good. We've got a couple of cake decorators at the wedding reception. There's plenty of time between the service and the reception. We'll be able to fix it. So the next morning I got up to go and buy the ribbon to go around the cake. And while I was at the shop, there was a figurine of a bride dragging a bridegroom. And as a joke, I took a picture of it and sent it to my daughter and she rang me, are you still there? Are you still there? Get that, that's hilarious. So I bought that to go on the top of the cake as well. Well, that was a topical point of the reception. And if we go back to the disaster the night before, if we hadn't have had a solution-based perspective, we would have been having an argument the night before about it. We probably would have still been arguing about ruining the day. And 2.5 years later, we'd probably still be blaming and arguing with each other. So that's that blame or responsibility. I took full responsibility for what happened and I took full responsibility to solve the problem. Another one I can talk about is my great husband gave me a story this week. At the supermarket on Sunday night, he reversed my brand new Mercedes-Benz into a car that was coming through the car park. I'm very grateful that we don't have to use insurance. There wasn't much damage on either vehicle and we don't have to go through insurance. So take responsibility, be grateful for the outcome, don't get in your head about it. But my husband still today is beating himself up. So he destroyed Sunday night over what he deems is a mistake. He had the worst day he could have had at work Monday, and he's still in his head about it today. And the one thing that hasn't changed yet for him, that will change soon when I help him through the model, is he's trying to blame the other driver. He's reversing out of a car park and the other driver's driving straight through the car park. The other driver has right of way. The person reversing is the person responsible. When he finds his way to realise that and take responsibility, the whole thing will disappear. But what I want to ask you guys now is, how many incidences happen where you're trying to blame somebody else instead of taking full responsibility? And how many days does that take up a big chunk in your head? How many days do you allow that to impact you? We can even talk about the basketball. When one of the guys misses a shot, how does that impact them? How do they go up to the next basket? Do they go up to the next basket looking for the basket to go in to win? Or are they in their head thinking about what they just missed? The other thing I want to talk quickly about as well, to give you as much value as I can today, is judgment versus acceptance. It's a huge one in business. Somebody says something to us or somebody does something to us and we judge them. We don't know who they are or where they've come from or what their life circumstances are or what's happening for them in their life right now. When we judge somebody, we judge them based on our past, based on our experiences, based on our reality. And it's nothing about them at all. And we might argue about what we see. Can everybody see that? The guy who's looking at the 6, he believes he's looking at a 6. In fact, he's argumentative that he's looking at a 6. And the guy that's looking at the 9, he's argumentative about looking at his 9. It's perspective and perception. What we see is not always what we believe we see. And somebody else can see the same thing and have a totally different perspective on it. My husband and I were driving out our driveway about 6 months ago, and we're at the front of the driveway, and I looked up and our neighbours across the road had put a camera on the front of their house. And I'm like, and I'm the coach, so I should take the high road. But I'm human too, so I sometimes take the low road. And I'm like, oh my God, is that a camera? Does that take the front of our house? Is that an invasion of our privacy? Can that see into our bedroom? I was like freaking out. And my husband's like, yeah, that is a camera. And I think it's a good thing because it probably does take the front of our house and now our cars are going to be protected. Now, as we continued on that Sunday, I was so adamant that that was a bad thing, that it was an invasion of my privacy and I didn't want it over there. And how many times in life does something in the next little while impact us and change our view, our perspective on something? So within 7 days, my son's car got broken into out the front of our house. What did I do? Straight across the road to ask them for the footage. I would not have believed when I saw that camera that I would ever love it being over there. And you know what? If they can see into our bedroom, well, lucky them. What I want to really leave you with is something that you can really use each and every day. Gratitude. Who here has a gratitude practice? Not enough of you. Who follows Richard Branson at all? Very successful man. Who follows Oprah Winfrey? Very successful woman. Who follows Ellen DeGeneres? Very successful person. All of those have a gratitude practice. Success leaves clues. Success leaves clues. And one of those clues to success is a gratitude practice. Tony Robbins has a gratitude practice. John DeMartini has a gratitude practice. If you're not sure who these people are, they're the gurus in the coaching space in the world. So what did I do when I was retraining in human behaviour? I started the gratitude practice like I was told to do, and I would start my day. I am grateful for Derek. I'm grateful for Stephanie. I'm grateful for Adrian. And I'm grateful for Claire, and I'll be even more grateful when this goddamn practice starts to work. I was doing a practice. So we're not looking for doing a practice. We can throw a basketball at the backboard 100 times a day, but if it's not going in the hoop, we're actually learning how to do something poorly, not how to do something well. So now my gratitude practice consists of, I open my arms, and this is my bed, that's why I've got it here, and I say, I love my bed. Who loves their bed? I love my bed, never ever talks back to me, supports me every day, keeps me warm when I want to, I can throw the doona back and be cool if I want to. I love my bed. And then I might start with I love to wiggle my fingers and wiggle my toes. And then I might think I love green. I've recently started training so I can feel that I have muscles inside my body that I never knew I had before. So I feel my muscles and I'm grateful for feeling those. So I talk to myself about the things that I really like and I really love. And it doesn't matter if my husband pisses me off or my kids piss me off or something at work has pissed me off. These things are the dicky little things that I love and I'm grateful for that aren't going to change. And it's like putting petrol in your car. Who here would drive their car ever without filling up the tank? So the grateful practice helps us fill our tank each and every day. And I don't get out of bed until I feel like lemonade bubbles are popping on my skin. So I've got those goosebumps going. And then I might have to visit my grateful practice during the day as well. But if you get out of bed and your default is here, and then the shit of the day happens, and every time something goes wrong, it goes down here, and it goes down here, and it goes down here, we can end our days feeling rotten. But if we pump ourselves up with a gratitude practice and we start our day up here, when the shit of the day happens, we might end at the default where we started. So I'd like to leave you with that, with your gratitude practice. This is me, I'm Mary Jensen. My business is Empower Services, and thanks so much for being with us today.
Ask questions. So, doing very well. Give one myself. Would you like to ask me a question?
I'd love to thank the FMA for giving you guys this Wellness Day. I mean, wellness is a really integral part of life now, and sports too. I owe a lot to sports. My children have played basketball since they were in grade prep. I come from a really tough environment. My dad was a violent alcoholic, and my mum has 11 grandchildren, and my 3 of the 11 grandchildren are the only ones that haven't gone down the alcohol and the drug road, and I absolutely thank that to basketball. So sports is a great way to stay happy and be mindful. Gym is a great way to stay happy and be mindful, but more than that, our thoughts. So thinking about different perspectives and thinking about the other person when you're in a situation at work that cheeses you off is a great way to go.
I've got a question for you now. So you haven't done your gratitude, you're having one of those days, you should have done your gratitude, you get to that point and you're on a real down. How do you flip?
So 5 happy thoughts. So I wrote a module for the Coaching Institute on positive psychology, and when we were doing the studies for positive psychology, we learned that a negative thought weighs 2 positive thoughts. So 1 negative thought weighs 2 positive thoughts. So to come back to neutral, we have to have 2 positive thoughts. To come back to positive, we have to have 3. And I'm a high achiever, so I need 5. I want to make sure that I nail anything. And the practice is to think of your 5 happy thoughts when you're in a negative space. But I didn't think that I would be able to do that, so I lined up mine so that I was prepared if I ever went to negative thinking. And I did. I used to be in negative thinking all the time. So I had the birth of my 3 children, my engagement and my wedding, and now I've got a 6th one to add, my gorgeous granddaughter. So line up some happy thoughts when you're at those times in the day where you're just down and you think you can't keep going. Think about your happy thoughts. One of my clients used to catch lizards when he was 5 years old. So his happy thought that he always goes to is those, he calls them sleepy lizards. They're blue tongue lizards, I call them, but he calls them sleepy lizards. So find what it is for you. Another one of my clients really struggles with the gratitude practice in the morning, and he can't do it the way that I do it, and it is about finding what works for you. So he plays with his dog for 5 minutes. He works from his own virtual office, so when he finds himself in a slump, he goes and plays with his dog for 5 minutes. So it is about finding what works for you, because as Pat said, we're all individuals, and some things work for one of us and some things work for somebody else.
So what about the situation where you're trying to do that and you can't actually remove yourself from that situation? You need to, say, grind your way through that.
So if I was at home, my husband would say, do you need to meditate? Who here meditates? Meditation is a great way to clear your mind, because it does clear your mind. If you can do silent meditation, that's the best way. I can't do that. My mind races a lot, so I do a lot of guided meditation. Music is another way. So I have some happy songs. When I was retraining, I used to cook breakfast in the morning to the song I Feel Good. And you know that song, I feel good. Anyway, my son came home from school one day and he was whistling I Feel Good. So I nailed it that day, because he couldn't have been whistling I Feel Good all day and not feel good. Music actually hits the 4 quadrants of the brain. So you cannot be down and in a mood if you've got some great music in your head. I think the lady over here had a question. It was difficult to do. So we have a holiday house at Inverloch that we spend the summer down there, so we kind of like go to the Hamptons for the holidays. And about 3 years ago we were down there one summer, and my husband said to me, "What are you thinking?" I was staring out the window thinking. He said, "What are you thinking?" I laughed. I said, "You don't want to know." He said, "I do. I can see it ticking over in your head." And I was actually thinking, am I relaxing or am I doing nothing? And he goes, "You're insane. What's the difference?" And I said, "Well, if I'm relaxing, that's a good thing, because now I know I have to schedule time to relax. But if I'm doing nothing, that's inefficient." So yes, it did take me a while to be able to turn off from that go, 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 go. Last summer, we just spent 5 weeks at Inverloch, and I jet skied and I water skied and I relaxed and I read books. So I can do that now. But it did take a while, especially after you've done 30 years of absolute human doing and not a human being.
So how much is a healthy mindset actually creating opportunity for yourself?
So I work with really high wealth people, and I've tracked on a spreadsheet, because I'm still a geeky accountant, gratitude and fun activities actually create leads and cash flow. So we have created the spreadsheet, and anybody who is saying that they need more leads, then they need to be more grateful. When we're grateful for things, then more grateful things turn up. We have what we call a reticular activating system in our brain, and what we focus on is what we get. So if we're focusing on being grateful, then we get more things to be grateful for. And the other one is fun or self-care. So fun and self-care can be any way it is for you. It might be taking 5 minutes here, or a bath, or playing sport, or going to the gym, whatever it is for you. But fun and self-care equals cash flow. If your business doesn't have cash flow, you need to get out of it and have some fun. And the reason that sounds like an oxymoron, because a lot of my clients go, no, if I need cash flow, I have to work harder. You're actually sending out to the universe that you feel good, and you're focusing on taking care of yourself. So the universe sends you more stuff to be able to feel good about, and that's usually cash flow in a business. And I work with millionaires, and they're like, this cannot possibly be true. But they get out of their heads, they get out of the space, they relax. So one of the things I talk about a lot is I say that I create bug zappers. When we lift our energy and we're feeling really good, we notice all the opportunities that are around us. So opportunities are surrounding us all the time, each and every day, hundreds of them, but sometimes we notice them and sometimes we don't. If we're in a great mood and we're feeling good, we notice more opportunities than we do if we're head down in a slump.
Any other questions? No? If you put your hands together for Mary.
Thank you. Thanks.